Hi there, in this video I am going to share some of my awakening journey with you. I'm going to share a model of mind that comes from A Course in Miracles and some how-to techniques that have helped myself and others to find greater peace, happiness and contentment in life, with the hope that you will also find great benefit too. Now what's really crucial in this awakening is your direct experience of that which is greater, that invisible world. And so this approach is all about you making a connection with that and finding your own inner sense of guidance, wisdom and support. Now, my personal journey of awakening began with a near-death experience, and the good news is you don't have to do anything dramatic like that on your awakening journey. It just so happened that was mine. And what it gave me though, it's made two things crystal clear for me as a direct experience. So the first one was that I am not this physical body. Now, the experience was I was floating into this just amazing light and love and profound peace. Words do not do it justice at all. But I was aware of myself, but I knew I wasn't in my body. And I distinctly remember thinking, oh, well, I'm not my body then. And the second thing was that there is definitely something greater than just this physical world. So this approach is about you really living that as an experience and it being your direct experience of it. So the next thing that happened was I got woken in the early hours with this sentence that was on repeat in my mind. And I was wide awake, so I got up and I started to write. And it was like taking inner dictation. So I guess this is my first experience of what we might call channeling. Now, the core message in that writing was the fact that there is love and fear and everything else is in between, and it's really important that we choose love. And that kind of sparked this epic exploration into a journey of love and what that truly is and what it means to live with it every single day. So I started to explore and I began doing a psychology degree. Now, one of the theories for near-death experience is that it's just something that the brain does at that point in time, at the point of death. And I began to think, well, maybe that was just something that my brain did. Maybe that, maybe it wasn't anything greater. Even though it always had a very different quality to a dream, or it was always very vivid and very real. And so I began to question it. And then because at the time as well, I was medically sedated. I had sort of drugs in my system, so who knows what that would have done as well. But I was then exploring some Tai Chi and Qigong, and I went on this lovely weekend retreat, and we were just asked to be silent as we ate our lunch and then come and do this exercise with a tree. We just put our hands by this tree and just close our eyes and just moving our hands back and forth. And all of a sudden I lost all sense of my separate self, what I would call this physical body, this Wendy person. All of that disappeared. And there was just this sense of pure, unconditional love and the absolute knowing that that was the source of all of life, everything came from it and everything returned to it. And then I think I heard a rustle of somebody moving, and in my mind I said, oh, peace and love, man, because I felt a bit stupid because that was not me to be hugging trees or doing exercises with trees. And I kind of bumped back into, my personality self, this physical body. But I was like, okay, so that definitely is there, that definitely is something far greater. So let's jump into this model of mind and start to unpack what might be going on there. So let's take a look at this model of mind from A Course in Miracles. Now, I love A Course in Miracles because it just fits with those otherworldly experiences that I've had over the years. So I'm immensely grateful to A Course in Miracles. It makes a lot of sense. You might be familiar with it, you might not, doesn't matter. So what it says is it sees that there are two ways of functioning in the world, two different minds. Now, I've put them in boxes just to kind of give us some clarity and so we can think about it. Because we are living in the world of form, and this is currently where all our beliefs are and we're very embedded in it, this just makes it easiest for us to understand it, right? So we'll look at it in separate boxes. And what you've got here, so it sees that there is the separate mind and there is the whole mind. So the separate mind is the idea that I am an ego. It's where ego rests. It's our personality self. That idea of what we are. It's the idea that we are separate, absolutely separate from everything else, that I exist as this physical human being and you are that physical human being, and that we are separate from each other. The world of form, so things, the world, all the stuff in the world, everything which is tangible and you can touch. The body, this idea that I am this body. It's where fear rests, pain and suffering. It's the place of time, past and future, and history. And then if we look, that the whole mind almost has like the opposites. So the whole mind is where we know ourselves to be spirit. We might call it the higher self. So much more than just this form, just this body, and even just this mind. It's where we have a sense of connection with that which is greater and all things in life. I mean, we're absolutely seeing, aren't we, that, you know, the things that are happening on the planet, everything is connected, and it's becoming so obvious to us that, you know, if I do something over here, it has an effect over there, you know, that butterfly effect. So that's becoming more and more obvious as we are remembering our connection. As opposed to form, it's the formless place. And the formless is where everything starts, like that all comes first before form. That's why it's so important that the changes we make are inside of the mind, and that we're shifting the mind from where we are perceiving the world to arise from. I hope that makes sense. But if you've got any questions, pop them below and we can, I'm really happy to discuss this to help us understand. Opposite of fear, we've got love, and we're not talking about love like human love, where, well, I'll love you if you love me, but if you do that, I don't like it. We're talking here about pure, unconditional love, the love which is all accepting, the love which doesn't judge, doesn't chastise, doesn't condemn. That's the love we're talking about here, that pure, unconditional love, which is the source of all things, that the I, the infinite intelligence, you know. Don't need artificial intelligence, we need the infinite intelligence right now. We need that wisdom coming into all of us and guiding us. We've got peace and stillness instead of our pain and suffering. It's timeless as well as formless. There is no time, it only exists here in this level of perception, in this box. It's present moment, so it's like timeless, it's just now and that's it. And the opposite of our history, we've actually got our destiny. Now, I kind of love this. I heard a pastor say it the other day, and it really made sense to me. It's like, when we are in this box, when we're in our separate mind, we are living out our stories, his story or her story, our history. We're living out the past, and we're not fully connected with the divine inspiration of the moment. So if I'm living from this place, and what I love at the moment is that I am blipping between the two. It used to frustrate me. Now it's really cool, because I feel like, well, I'm really learning how do we live over here? What do we need to do in order to live in this space? And they're like two different modes of functioning. So if you're living with the separate mind, you know, like Buddha said, you know, that there is suffering. So in this mind there is suffering, and you can't do anything about that. It just exists, and we're all trying to alleviate our suffering through the form, but actually what we need is the formless. That's where true suffering is truly alleviated, right? Where suffering is truly alleviated. Now over here, where we're living our destiny, is we don't know what the future looks like. So when I had that automatic writing, there was the love and fear and everything in between. The other line, which at the time really freaked me out, because there was just so much wisdom flying out of the words, I was typing actually, so much wisdom just flying out, and I was like, yes, as it was coming out, and that just made so much sense, and I had no resistance to it, until all of a sudden, what flew out was, all is perfect in God's plan. And I remember that stopped me in my tracks, because I didn't believe in God, and I certainly didn't believe that God had a plan. It was just this completely alien concept. But what if there was a plan? What if there was something greater? What if there was this infinite intelligence, which is the creator of life itself? I mean, I think like life is so clever, isn't it? And yet we are trying to control it. You know, what animates me? What animates you? You know, you think about like when a baby's born, or how the body works, or how nature balances itself. I mean, it's mind-blowingly clever, isn't it? And yet we are there thinking that we can come in and control. I mean, it's almost quite funny, really, from this perspective. But when you're over here, like, it's really hard, because it feels like that's how it is, and the world is a fearful place. So this kind of starts with, I guess, at the beginning of the how do we kind of create this experience for ourselves of this, because I'm not asking you to believe me. Why would you believe me? I don't believe anyone. I believe the direct experiences I'm having, because that really is the only thing we can truly trust, right? So this is about you wanting, or even beginning to open your mind to, hey, could there be a possibility that there was another way that I could function in the world? Could that have access for me? And then we can start to look at, okay, well, how do we kind of make this shift from one to the other, and how can we begin to experience more and more of this whole mind as our experience of life itself? How do we have more love, greater peace, stillness, harmony? How do we live from our destiny instead of our history? I mean, you know, we're so often so stuck punishing ourselves for things of the past that we did, or, you know, we feel bad about it and we can't get out of it. It's like this crazy loop. And so there we get more of the same. Whereas over here we get to live from that infinite intelligence, from that divine inspiration. So here's some gems from A Course in Miracles. So I just like this infinite intelligence. I would use the word God now, but I couldn't use the word God for years, because I had so many boxes around what that meant and so much resistance to it. So if we think of the infinite intelligence, which is the creator of all things of which we are a part, you know, hopefully that, because this is not about a particular religion, or this is like, we're all the same thing. And, you know, we're waking up to that, which is so glorious. So A Course in Miracles has some fantastic kind of messages in there to challenge the belief that we have, because there's a lovely bit where it says projection makes perception. So what I'm projecting is like, it flips things around. When you're in the world of form, you think it's happening here and that things are outside of myself, and in order to make a change I have to change something outside of myself. But actually that's a fallacy. The truth is everything is coming from the projector. Now you might have heard it said, if you imagine like you were the projector in the movie theatre onto the screen, and the screen is there with the film. Now if you're stuck in the separate mind, believing that you are resolutely in the world of form, you are associating with the movie on the screen. And you, as well as I know, we can yell at the TV screen or the movie screen as much as we like, it's not going to change a thing, right? What we need to get to is the projector. We need to find that part of ourselves which is projecting, because that is what makes the perception. There's also a couple of little gems here, that the ego always speaks first. Now I love that. The ego is loud. It's not a bad thing, it's just a thing. And it gives us this experience of being a separate human being. Part of the how-to actually is to come into non-resistance and non-judgment with all things. And yet we have so many judgments. That's part of what maintains that experience. But when you know it always speaks first, it means you can relax, actually. Stop beating yourself up for having negative thoughts or bad thoughts or whatever you want to term them, and instead just witness them. Take the time then to take a breath, which actually allows then that which is greater in you to arise and bring its version to the party, which is always really interesting. And there's another one here, which is, if I'm not at peace, then I must have chosen otherwise. So A Course in Miracles has like workbook lessons to help undo. It says that it can't teach what love is, because that is impossible, but what it's there to do is to help us undo the blocks to love's presence. And we have many of those in our ideas, in our thoughts, in our beliefs. So I love this one because I just was pondering around with this one, and when I first read it I was like, really? Because it really seems like people are doing some stuff and that's impacting me and then making me feel bad. And I spent the whole day just like wrangling with this idea, and what I'd do is I'd think the idea and then I'd look at all the resistances I had to it not being the truth. And all of a sudden it just dawned on me, and this is the bridge which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is that greater intelligence, that infinite intelligence, is there for you all the time, and it can guide you and teach you and help you awaken in a really lovely way. Because all of a sudden I realised, wow, okay, that, you know, there must be something in me that I can get that. And this is like, you know, you are an immensely powerful creative being, and it's very, very cool. So let's dig deeper into some of those how-tos. Okay, so let's dive into some of the how-to. But before we do that, I want to share with you two things. One was the moment where I really felt like I knew what Einstein must have felt like. It was my eureka moment. And also that I noticed that I didn't share with you about the witness consciousness. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. So let me share this little story with you. So one day I was writing and journaling, and all of a sudden from my pen just flew unity to separation and back again. This cycle of life. And it felt like, you know, every lifetime and the bigger story of humanity took this journey, and that as a collective we were actually coming out of the, you know, been to the brink of separation, and we were coming back into this sense of connection and unity. And in that moment it felt like, it was like, that's it, that's life, that's what it does, this absolute simplicity, this knowing. And I remember laughing, I'm thinking that, you know, this must have been what Einstein felt like when he had his breakthroughs. So I don't know if it was, but I thoroughly enjoyed that sensation. So, but there's something in that, I think, for me, that this collective consciousness, this unity, and this idea of us being a separate human being, and that what we're waking up to with the awakening journey is where we realise that we are not separate, that we are connected and we are part of everything. So in coming to how do we connect with that more, we're going to look at the mind, the body and the emotions, those three pieces. And in the connection is where your spirit is. So we won't look at spirit because that is in the connection. So we're going to look at mind, body and emotions. And that consciousness, that witness consciousness, to me is the experience that arises is when I am resting in the experience of being connected to all things. And it feels like, it's like, you might have heard it called the witness, where you're watching your mind. I think it's a really great place to kind of come from, because you're taking a step back from what you're resolutely rooted in. So for example, if we were to think, I am this body, we're really rooted in that. So we take a step back from that. If we think, I am the emotions, I am these thoughts, we're caught in them. Whereas the witness, you're watching them arising and you're just letting them be. And it gives you this, it's a lovely experience. It's like you're watching yourself and the world unfolding. Sometimes it's referred to as being in the world but not of the world, which is ultimately what we all are. We are not of this world, but we appear to be in this world. So this witnessing consciousness is that. Now, how do we get more of that? How do we experience that? So here's some of the things that I found truly helpful, and there's much more information on this, but I'll give you kind of like, for me, what I feel like the top tips, if you like. My top tip for approaching the mind, body and emotion is that you come with friendship. You come with compassion and kindness, and that you approach it all with great love, because that's where you'll get the breakthroughs. Because any resistance, any judgment, anything that we're thinking is not okay, that creates like a conflict within us, a war within us. And most of us, certainly I know I was, I've got this huge war going on within us. And that now it's about really finding that peace where, of course, we are not at war. I also wanted to share with you a part of the introduction from A Course in Miracles. It's really beautiful. Listen to this. This is what it says. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. Isn't that beautiful? So, love is there always. It is our natural inheritance, yet we have many, many blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so what this is about is how we can remove those blocks to love's presence. And we can use the mind, the body and the emotions. They can help us in our quest, if you like. So the body is a wonderful source of wisdom. It holds things, it stores things, it's how we come into divine flow, it's how we can hear the unconscious, because there is much that we think which we don't even know we think. And how can we access that? Well, we can do it through the body. So I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail here. I've made a program called Body Breakthrough, which is on the YouTube channel and in the TCI, the Change Inside Facebook group, which you're welcome, it's all free, which you're welcome to come and have a look at that. That has like little tips, tools, techniques of how you can connect with your body, because you want to really make friends with your body, you want to learn to listen to your body, and then there opens up this greater flow in the body. Lots of other amazing things too, like Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, and others. So find something that you really enjoy, which is going to help you to connect with your body. But the simplicity being the breath is great for beginning to connect with the body, and even bringing our awareness to our body to start to listen. But often in the West we live very much in our minds, our awareness is up here. In the East, the centre of being is seen as being, I think it's 2 or 3 fingers below the belly button. So whereas we live up here thinky, and actually you can breathe down and connect with your belly. More great ways to connect with the body. Now what I found is that the body holds so many things, and I think often unconsciously we are stopping ourselves from really connecting with the body, because when we start to do that we have to feel the completeness of what is there, and I'm talking often like emotional things will be held in the body. It's also true if you kind of have had an injury or an illness that you will protect that body, your body, protect parts of your body. Initially because you need to, but then what you don't realise is the body is healed, but then the mind, which is manifesting in that, is got this idea that it needs to protect. So I'll give you a story, an example of that. So when I was ill and I had the flesh-eating bug, and I lost 2/3 of the flesh on my torso and my womb and ovaries, and a lovely piece of my thigh over my stomach here to keep everything in place, let me stand up and walk around. And of course, you know, when that first happened, that was immensely fragile. You know, they didn't know if I would sit up, they didn't know if I would walk around, and so my mind protects this area. Some years later, I was doing some Aikido, and I was invited to do like a backward roll on the mat, and I just tried to do it, and my whole body contracted, and I burst into tears, and they were like, "Let's go, just go and sit on the edge of the mat." And as I was sat there, you know, sobbing, what I realised was, oh wow, I'm protecting this area, because I feel like if I do that backward roll, it's going to like break, and actually it's not that anymore, it's strong now, and actually I need to find out what it can do. So our bodies are always changing in every moment, and so when we are living in the separate mind, this idea of form, you know, we're projecting past, future all the time. We're not present to the moment, we're not present to what is my body doing and feeling like right now, and it can change moment to moment. So it was really lovely to then get up and do that backward roll, and nothing did burst open, nothing bad did happen. It just showed me like, wow, I can do that now. So I've had several, you know, that's happened quite a lot. It's really quite insightful, and it'll be the same, you know, that's again this dramatic example, and you don't have to have a dramatic example. It can just be tiny things that will really have an impact on you and you don't even realise. So it's really lovely to really make friends with the body. It really is your guide, it's a source of wisdom, and that it's a great, as you become freer and freer in the mind, and then you're freer and freer in the body, then everything starts to flow more. So like I said, lots of great things that you can check out to do with the body. And now let's have a look at the emotions. So again, I'm not going to go into masses of detail here because I've written a book on it for you. So I've written a book called Process and Prosper, which has a 7-step process of how you can learn to process your emotions. And again, that's all part of making friends with, not being in resistance to, learning to what does that feel like in the body, and to breathe with and flow with, such that everything expands. So I had a beautiful time in India some years ago at the Oneness University, and there's one of the teachings there which has just stuck with me, where they said underneath everything is peace. And so far I've found that to be true. And if you think of the emotions as you start to come into the body, I mean, you might be meeting with guilt or shame, you know, these heavier emotions, anxiety, sense of depression, all of those things. And that as you start to meet those, it can be very, very uncomfortable for us. So just as if you do have many mental health issues, you know, make sure that you seek and have the correct support. But you want to be making friends with that, gently and lovingly making friends with that. Because then everything dissipates, everything expands, and then the peace arises, because the peace is always there, like the love is always there. But I know I was very trapped by these sensations and feelings, not wanting to go into them, and also making up what it was about. So there's an amazing, one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles is, I am never upset for the reason I think. And it's such a powerful lesson if you get it, because it stops you trying to work out, why do I feel like this? Now, I know that this is how I used to function. I'm betting you're familiar with this too, right? That you don't feel great, and your mind instantly goes to, why don't I feel great? It's looking for the reason. It's searching for, why am I not feeling good now? And it will find lots of appearingly really valid reasons why. But they're all red herrings. Now, the main reason is because we are disconnected from all that is. We are disconnected from Source. We're disconnected from life. And that's where the suffering really comes from. That's like the root, if you like. But all these other stories go on top, and they seem to make sense. So I just love that one. Ponder it for a while. I'm never upset for the reason I think, and see what wisdom dawns into your mind. So what I'm going to do is create a download link so you can get Process and Prosper and have a read of that. It's just a tiny book. It's designed to be read in an hour and practiced for life, right, these strategies. I've also made a video program a few years ago on it, so I'm going to upload that you'll find that on the YouTube channel and the Facebook group too as well, so that you can really begin to look at that and really begin to make friends with your emotions, and begin to find greater freedom, greater liberation, greater peace, greater happiness and contentment. It's very cool stuff. So that brings me to the final piece of what makes all of this easier for us, what makes it easier for us to transition from the separate mind to the whole mind, or maybe like what's the bridge that helps us do that? And the answer is faith. So I believe that many of the problems we're seeing on the planet these days is a lack of faith. And I just want to be really clear here, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about faith, your direct experience of that which is greater. That, you know, where you are residing and experiencing, being that witnessing consciousness, where you are filled with love, such that you are the overflowing cup of love, and that you are the expression of love in the world. And so it might be, I want to invite you into an experiment with me to test something out. And you can be religious or not religious, it doesn't matter. So this is multi-denominational and non-denominational, because it's about love. And in every religion at the core there is love. And then for people also that, you know, don't believe in a religion, there's a seat of love, right? So we're talking about love, the pure unconditional love, that infinite intelligence that is the creator of all things. It's very clever, isn't it, you know? So we're talking about that, connecting with that as a direct experience yourself. So let me tell you a little story. When I was studying A Course in Miracles and it first come to me, I was blown away by the teachings, because, as I said, they fitted so well with these expansive experiences that I've been having. And all of a sudden, one day, I realised I'm not actually really practicing this properly. So I'm reading the words and I'm gaining great wisdom and it's expanding my mind, but I'm very much approaching it with my psyche. And I'm not allowing, actually, or inviting that greater help which is possible. Now, that greater wisdom had been giving me nudges for a very long time and sharing lovely wisdom and love and expansion with me, you know, that kind of started with that near-death experience, and then lots of other times where that loving presence was very obvious in my life and within me. And so if we think of it like those two states of mind, how do we shift? How do we make it easy for ourselves to shift from one to the other? Now, if we're trying really hard to be a better person, to be kinder, to be more loving, but we are ensconced in the separate mind, it's very, very difficult, and also that we can end up being really hard on ourselves and really judgmental, and everything seems like a big problem. If you flip that to the whole mind, where you are resting as that witnessing consciousness, where you know that you are a part of everything, where you are filled with love such that you are the overflowing cup, everything becomes much easier, everything flows better. It's a divine, it's heaven on earth. So heaven is not somewhere to go. Heaven is right here, right now, and it comes from the state of mind. So that's the fundamental shift to make. So how? So faith is the answer. Now, I want to invite you into an experiment with me. So for me, I practice with Jesus. Jesus is said to be the source of A Course in Miracles. It's the most familiar to me from my upbringing. And what I did was I just Googled images of Jesus, because I know the mind thinks in pictures. So I found an image I liked, and it's one of Jesus meditating on a rock. And that for me, it's really seeing that Jesus is an enlightened being. You could look at that like this wonderful friend who is an enlightened being who can help your mind to come to that same state. So what we want to dissolve is the idea of Jesus being separate to us or something different to us. Now, if you have a different religion, then it might be, if you're a Hindu, it could be Krishna, for example, that you'll use the image of Krishna. If you're a Buddhist, you use the image of Buddha. So, but it needs to be that enlightened mind, that enlightened being. I was speaking to somebody yesterday actually who said for her there's a real connection with Mother Mary, so she was going to have a go and see if it works with that. So what you want to do is find an image, your chosen image, and if you don't have, now for me I was quite anti-religious, so I'm just going to speak to you if you're anti-religious here a minute, because I had a lot of resistance to doing this because of my bad experience with religion. So what I invite you to do is put all the doctrine to one side. We're not talking about religion here, we're talking about faith, your direct connection with that which is greater. So put all the doctrine to one side and just have a go at the experiment, have a go at your personal experiment with faith. If you are deeply religious, I also invite you to put the doctrine to one side and really get involved in your personal experiment with the divine, with that which is greater. So it seems to me at the moment that the bridge is that enlightened mind. We can call that enlightened mind to help us to enter our minds and help us return to that state ourselves. So here's what I did, was I realised I wasn't practicing with Jesus, so I just Googled images of Jesus. I found a beautiful image of Jesus sitting on a rock that I liked, and I would then think of that image in my mind, and I would ask that image, please fill my mind with your mind, please fill me with your love, and please help me see with your eyes. So in that I'm surrendering everything I know and how I see the world, and I'm inviting enlightened mind, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness into the mind to see from that place instead. And it is miraculous, miracles happen. So I invite you to join us in this experiment and see for yourself what might happen in your mind. And of course the miracle in its simplicity, this is the other thing, is this is another thing I loved from India actually, was everyone has this idea of this big revelationary experience, and revelation is amazing. It's where you're profoundly changed forever, but don't seek it. So when I was in India, because it can be something that you're looking for this, you've got this idea, and you formed an idea, and then it's right here, right now, it's quiet, it's invisible, it rocks up in various guises, right? So if you are thinking too far of this thing, you can miss it when it's right under your nose. And in India, what they said is, somebody was asking about this revelation experience, and they said, oh, we don't worry about those. And I loved it. It was like, don't make it a big thing. If it happens, amazing, but it's not what you're seeking, because again, if you're seeking, you're always putting it away from yourself. And the truth is, it is you right here, right now. It's already here. It is you. There's just all this other stuff over the top, such that we have forgotten. So we're going to peel off those layers to remember. So I invite you to join in this great faith experiment and see what happens for you. And yeah, I'd love to know about it, so please do share in the comments below. Masses of love from me to you on this amazing journey. And I'll leave you with the simplicity that you are spirit. You are not your body, you are not your mind, you are not your emotions. You are an immensely creative, powerful being. So choose love now. Choose for all of the blocks to love's presence to be removed as you return to that source of love that is your natural inheritance. And I'm going to leave you with a prayer. It's a beautiful prayer from a book called The Way of Mastery. And it's a prayer of surrender, because often we're trying so hard, we're kind of programmed that we have got to do stuff and we have got to make it happen, and we're trying to do things and we're feeling responsible. And this is where we're surrendering and giving it all over to that which is greater, such that we can become a divine conduit for the pure love that is. And the prayer goes like this. Source, Creator, God, Goddess, all that is Abba, I am ready to be what you created me to be. I choose to remember that I am effect and not cause. Thy will be done, knowing that your will is my full happiness. Reveal then that path through which that happiness may be known. For my way has never worked, but your way always does. Lots of love from me to you.